Thank you very much for joining, everyone. I am your host, Colin Fitzpatrick of the BetterTech AI podcast, and I am super excited to have Ravi Malick today. Ravi, thank you so much for joining. Ravi is the CIO of Box.com. We are very, very highly appreciated to have you on the podcast today. And Ravi and I caught up the other day, and I was pretty amazed by his pretty whirlwind of a crazy background of what led him to be CIO of Box.com. So Ravi, maybe you can tell us a little bit of detail about that journey before we plow into some more interesting stuff.
Sure. And thanks for having me, Colin. Appreciate being here. And yeah, excited to talk a little bit about Box and AI and all things technology. My journey to the CIO seat was maybe a little bit different. I actually started my career in investment banking and institutional equity and fixed income. From there, went into consulting, PwC, where it's really where I got exposed to enterprise technology. This was kind of in the mid to late 90s, lots of big ERP implementations. I actually went a little bit of a different route at that time. I was one of the first people to learn that new language called Java at that time. And that kind of got me into e-commerce and other interesting developments at that time. After several years at PwC, I got into the startup world. So spent some time in software and financial services, fintech, kind of wore a bunch of different hats during that time. Kind of initially extended the consulting path, but then spent time in product marketing, product management, ultimately ended up running global services. So pre-sales, sales, consulting. Did that for a while before getting out of software and going back into finance, so to speak, financial services. Did that for several years, doing structured finance, wholesale, as well as some electronic trading, algo trading, those kinds of things. After that stint, I wanted to get back into technology. I also wanted to get off the road. I had spent probably 80% of my time traveling. The kids were young, wanted to be at home more. And that's actually how I ended up both in IT and at that time, the energy business, electricity generation, power generation, retail electricity, company called TXU Energy. Ended up going there at that time. This is late 2010. They were very recently off of a very large LBO, leveraged buyout by KKR, TPG, and Goldman. They had massive outsourcing with a partner. They were now insourcing. So it was like being at a startup at a Fortune 500 company. We were hiring people in IT and finance and HR, and we were building. They had just implemented SAP, massive transformation. And so it was, I came in and basically my job was to scale, to put in the processes, put in disciplines, manage the finances, create long-term financial plans, and really kind of help build out the organization. What started off as a 3 to 4 year plan turned into about 11 years. The last 4 as the global CIO. During that time, we went through a bankruptcy, spring of 2014, emerged in 2016. And from that point, we went on a very aggressive expansion through acquisition strategy. So in about 4 years, almost tripled the size of the company, both in terms of people, generation assets. When at the emergence, it was just a Texas company. The acquisitions gave us a national footprint, some international retail. All the while, we were also doing, again, another round of transformation within IT, really changing, optimizing the operating model, as well as shifting to the cloud. So getting out of the data center business, leveraging the cloud to provide agility, scalability, and that required not only technical changes and massive shifts there, but also operating changes. From there, after about 4 years, no weekends and very little time off, ended up taking a little bit of time off before ultimately joining Box as the global CIO at Box. I had been a Box customer. It had been part of the strategic shift to the cloud. And I was interested in getting back into the software side of things. It's a space that even, I mean, 10 years ago, I felt was really just scratching the surface, right? In terms of people understanding how important content or unstructured data is to the enterprise, how the enterprise really, companies really organize and work around content. And so I thought it was a great space for one. Two, phenomenal company and culture. The two
Mm,
founders, Aaron and Dylan, have really
mm.
built just a phenomenal culture and an amazing company. And three, my role is such that I get to kind of wear two hats, both internal and external. So internally doing the things that CIOs do, IT, security, et cetera.
Mm.
And then externally, I work with our sales teams and product strategy and go to market, and really spend a lot of time in the customer advocacy role, talking to other IT executives about content, about unstructured data, how to implement, how to think about it in a way that maximizes value. And for our customers, how do they continue to increase the value of their investment in Box?
That's awesome. So a lot of questions I have there. First of all, I just want to say there's barely an industry you haven't worked in. That is quite the collection of different
Healthcare.
levels of
Yeah, that's my
experience,
next one.
which I'm pretty sure stood to you. I mean, we talked about this. I've been involved in enterprise software pretty much most of my career, and in Oracle, I was one of the people that helped lead the transition from the sort of on-premise into the cloud, which is a very, very difficult thing for these legacy old school companies. Now what we've got is this transition that is coming into AI. Now we all know AI has been around a long time, but that we all got a bit of a slap in the face about 12, 14 months ago, of which we're still trying to figure out. I'd be keen to understand your sort of thoughts of how you see this transition happening for most of these companies. Sure, a lot of them are very, very used to cloud, they're wall-to-wall Microsoft and AWS, etc., and using products like Box. But, this time it's a little different. And,
Mhm.
how do you think it's going to go?
Oh wow, I think the jury's still out on how it's going to go, right? It's still a very active, rapidly changing, shifting market. With every sort of new release of Chat GPT, you see,
Mm.
companies that are basically being displaced that, haven't even been around for 12 months, 12 to 18 months. It is certainly an exciting time. I think this is in my career, I think this is probably the most transformative and impactful technology that I've seen, right? And I've gone through the ERP era, the big data era.
Mm.
Nothing really has had the immediate impact of generative AI that we've seen, both at an enterprise level and at a consumer level, right? That impact has been material in both areas. Interesting. It is an incredibly important aspect to the Box platform. We can talk a little bit more about that. But
Mm.
just, from a how do we run the business and how do we look at our tech stack, it's
Yeah.
also a challenge, right? Everybody's coming out with their version of AI, right? And so you've got to have a framework. You got to have, a governance in order to understand and make sure that you're using it the right way. Not only that you're getting value out of it, right? But you're minimizing or mitigating any security risks, right? And you're managing the cost. We know, the cost of AI can kind of skyrocket, right? We saw
Yeah.
in the move to cloud, a lot of companies kind of got that surprise and that, oh, we moved into the cloud, and all of a sudden, you get the OpEx pop.
Yeah.
All right. I think AI, you got to have sort of the same discipline to make sure that you don't get out over your skis on the cost front. So, it's a fun time for sure. I mean, these are the things that we enjoy doing, solving these types of problems. I think it's the other aspect that's really great is that it's shifted the conversation back to innovation, right? And
Yeah.
how are we going to leverage technology to grow the business, to create new revenue channels, right? So coming out of the kind of economic suppression period, if you will, it's nice
Mm.
to have a conversation, right, that is driving so much interest in technology and how it drives and continues to grow businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very exciting time, and this year especially is when a lot of people will be putting the foothold in to try and make a lot of this a reality. Let's take a step back, and just in case any of our listeners are not aware, just tell us a little bit about Box, and then what I want to talk about is what excites me the most about how AI really transforms Box as a company, but also as a product to your own customers.
Sure. So Box is the leading cloud content management platform. What does that mean? So if you think about data, right, everything ends up kind of being data. You have structured data, things that reside in rows and columns and tables, databases, et cetera. And then you have unstructured data. So anything that doesn't fall into that category, and that could be files, documents, video, audio, it could be engineering specs, CADs, et cetera. There's a huge, section of unstructured data. And what is really interesting is that about 90% of a company's total data picture is unstructured data.
Yeah.
And so, you think about Box, and Box from day one was engineered and designed for the enterprise with the enterprise
Mm.
in mind. So all of the, management, administrative, and security capabilities are built in the platform. It is truly, the platform for managing your content or unstructured data.
Mm.
Like, it's evolved over the last, well, I think 18 years now. Very much so in the last probably 5 to 7 years, from the roots of cloud storage and collaboration to integration with applications, automation, security, best in class security features, all the things that you need to effectively manage your unstructured data and content for the enterprise. Because the reality is, some of the most sensitive data and some of the most confidential data sits in documents, right? If you think about
Mm.
presentations and R&D and sales, right, and even customer operations, all of that, a lot of that information sits within content. And even if you think, hey, I've got all of this really great data in a structured format, it gets moved into the unstructured format, right? Finance
Yes.
people love to download into Excel, right? So it's downloading out of enterprise systems into
Absolutely.
Excel. Same thing in customer operations, downloading out of
Yeah.
enterprise system, into Excel to work with that data. So, having a real strong strategy is really what on content and unstructured data is really what Box is all about.
Mm. I mean, look, I've spent 20 years in enterprise companies, and the one thing that surprised me from the get-go was how much of a mess they are behind the curtains. It's
Yeah.
just data everywhere. It's a total shit show. Especially, yeah, yeah, especially in and around and trying to use business intelligence systems and things like that, trying to get the right data in there. Okay, we got databases, and then we got data warehouses, and then we got data lakes, and it's a total nightmare. And what I'm really excited about is how it just thrives on vast amounts of data and can do quite incredible things with it. I am interested to see how some of the legacy people will try to keep up with this versus what we will see built out of, from the ground up. Because looking at, and I just got an email the other day, and I know this is a totally different scale, but OpenAI are releasing their GPT store pretty soon. And people are just going to start building little SaaS apps
Right.
that people are going to start using. That is the way I see it going. Just like the App Store from the iPhone, and people would, I don't know, that beer drinking thing or a calculator or the flashlight. Little features that you kind of expected, and they came in, and people made a lot of money in a very short space of time before everything else caught up. Because personally, I think the way this is going is it's just going to be a new operating system, and it's going to completely take over. But what I'm really excited to see is how some of the bigger legacy software players are going to manage this transition into using generative AI, plugging it into their existing systems to just make things better for their customers, because they're paying millions of dollars for this software. It's not always the easiest for you to use. It doesn't always get you the best results, and sometimes it's incredibly difficult to skill up your workforce to use it, and AI is going to help with all of that.
Agree with all of the points that you made. it is technology is a challenge, right? And I was telling you, hold on. Don't peek back behind the curtain, right? But this is,
Yeah.
this is a reason why the role of the CIO, continues to grow and continues to increase in importance, right? Is managing that all and orchestrating all of that technology, right? That is, and particularly larger, older companies with legacy technology and getting that to work with, leading edge or bleeding edge technology, and really understanding, okay, where is my competitive advantage, right? I don't think that's going to be any different, with AI. It is, another aspect of technology that, that IT leaders and regular leaders are going to have to understand and address. It is the advent of cloud and SaaS really kind of created this software explosion, if you will, right? And the term best of breed came about, right? Which in theory enabled you to kind of pick and choose from the software buffet based on the capability that you needed and plug that
Yeah.
application in, right? To really kind of fulfill to the 99% or so of the needs. I have seen a bit of a pullback from that, right? Like, because, that every application represents a security issue, a security entry point, right? Or a threat entry point that you have to manage. So, seeing a pullback from that. I potentially see, and I've seen some of these solutions where, AI helps with that, right? AI can
Yeah.
help you manage the complexity of environment, right? When
Yeah.
you think about what AI is good at, around tasks. And as you mentioned, like it's been around for a while, but now I think, we see those kinds of applications, right? Those use cases that were difficult in the past are now potentially being not necessarily
Yeah.
fully solved, but accelerated with AI, right?
Massively.
Like,
I mean,
yeah,
I think as mentioned to you, I think it was the CEO of Anthropic, Mustafa Suleiman, came out and said there will be no programmers in 5 years. And that's a very, very big
it's
statement,
extreme.
and I don't
It's extreme.
necessarily agree with that, but I think a lot of the
Yeah,
low end stuff will just get done. But think about, I mean, look, we've all seen it, integration projects. They can be a nightmare. They can take forever. They take so much resources. Maybe some of those are just going to be, a whole lot easier to plug and play. And as you say, AI
oh, for sure.
helping because we're going to be plugging those holes. It won't be as difficult from a security perspective. You will have this buffet that you're able to utilize and not worry about some of the downsides around it a little bit more. But what I wanted to ask you, I think we talked when we talked last time, I mentioned to you the story of it was only a couple of months after ChatGPT came out, and I saw on Product Hunt this guy built something called Site GPT, and it was the most incredible chatbot for your website. Sorry, incredibly simple chatbot for your website, whereby you would plug it in, it trolls your site, your FAQ, your contact, anything like that, and turns it into a chatbot for your customers. But that was it. It didn't do anything else. And
Yeah.
I contacted this guy. He's a 23-year-old dude out of India, and he's making 25 grand a month after 3 weeks. It was just exploding. Since then, there's been dozens and dozens
Yeah.
of these chatbots built in because you can upload files. And I know a guy called Alden who does custom GPT, which is pretty good. It's more, how would I say, enterprise focus with scalability and security. But, we know what we've seen with OpenAI. They're just going to be eating the lunch of a lot of these sort of wrapper startups. But what I love about what you told me yesterday is that this is just the perfect storm for Box because you've spent
Mm.
your life building, the world's best content management platform for unstructured data. And now in comes this gift from gods of, this piece of AI that is just going to multiply the effectiveness of your product for your customers. And I can't even begin to think how it's actually going to be rolled out, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about, what you guys have in store.
Yeah, so we already announced BoxAI, right? And the first flavor of it, if you will be sort of summarization and generative content. And that's just the start, right? So the ability to go into a Box note and generate content, to generate a meeting, an agenda, generate marketing copy, generate summarization or rewrite, summarizations, One thing that I use on a regular basis is the summarization feature. If I'm working with a customer and they're a public company, I will download the 10K and ask, please summarize the key business strategies and risks, in 3 paragraphs. That is something that in the past that might have taken me, maybe 20, maybe 30 minutes to kind of peruse through the document and pull that stuff out. Right now, it's at my fingertips. And that's just the start. When you look at kind of the world of content or unstructured data within enterprise, right, and now being able to traverse and figure out, okay, how many different strategy documents do I have, right? Or summarize the strategy for the company over the last 10 years, right? Because all these companies, let's face reality, they might have retention policies in place, but lots of people like to keep everything. All right. But
Absolutely.
now being able to tap into that, right, and get that value. And then in particular, remove the duplicity of that content, right? Remove the reinvention of the wheel, because out of that 90% that I mentioned earlier of of data that's unstructured, I think like 40% of that is duplicative, right? And I think like 20% of it only gets used once, right? So you think about all those man hours, all the work behind that, right? And being able to really eliminate that and become more efficient, right? This is the world that we start to see when you start applying AI to unstructured data and to content, and the combination
Yeah.
of Box AI and hubs. So being able to organize content in meaningful buckets, right, or meaningful hubs, and then being able to apply AI within that context, within marketing or within sales or within operations. Right now, the ability to amplify productivity, I think is going to be tremendous. And so
So
this is just the start for us.
it really is. I have a question because one tool I recommend to absolutely everybody is to use one of the AI meeting note takers like MeetGeek or Fireflies. I find them absolutely invaluable. I mean, we're all on a dozen or half a dozen calls every day, and you're trying to remember something from 2 or 3 months ago. You can pull up the notes, you can see it. It's amazing. But that's not where the real value is for me. The real value for me is that, I would, let's say I'm consulting with a company. I'll jump on a couple of calls with the CEO. I'll get, all his information. Then I'll do it with marketing, tech, sales. And I'll bundle all of this sort of stuff into an AI and
Yeah,
get it to generate new content for me. That is what, to me, is the really, really exciting thing. And
yeah,
when I show them how to do that, and then okay, let's get a new sales document, some investment documents, let's do website content, and it's popping up in minutes, and they're going to go, this would take us weeks. That's amazing. You guys have got
sure.
everything in there. So I suppose my question is,
I was just going to
how do
ask
you
you,
manage?
Colin, when you're generating that new content, where are you putting
Yes, yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, and what are you doing with it? But there's kind of two things for me. I can ask it for what I want. When do you think we're going to get to the stage where it's going to run off and take a whole load of different aspects and just sort of throw something up for you that maybe you hadn't even imagined to ask for, but it is
it?
valuing as the best thing that it can give you?
Interesting. So now you're talking about it sort of running in the background, right? And
Yeah,
interpreting what your
that's what I can't
intent,
wait for.
what your intent is. Wow. Boy, if I had the accurate crystal ball on that, maybe we should go, start up a new company. But I mean, that is
You are.
that is, I think that is the future for us, right?
Mm,
Is that the ability to sort of interpret, and you see some of this, right, with email applications, kind of the type forward assumptions, right?
correct.
So there's already sort of early applications of it.
Mm,
The challenge now is how do you do that at scale, right? That's for an individual user writing an individual email. Well, how do you do it based on, "Hey, I went and looked at this document, I went and looked at that presentation, I then went on to the web and looked at this particular web page." Stitching that together to
mm.
interpret that intent is, that's interesting. That's definitely interesting.
I think that's what's coming. Look, I kind of tell people that generative AI, and I'm obviously a very big user, it is beginning to outsource thinking for us. You know what I mean?
Ooh,
But you still
yeah.
have to tell it for what to do. I mean, if I'm ideating a new business idea, whatever, I can chuck it in there and it'll just make sure I've got the complete picture, which I think is really interesting. I'm a really big fan. I follow very closely what's happening in the AI personal assistant area. Okay. And we know that Siri and Google and whatever it's called, Cortana, are all sort of going to get smart. But you saw the humane pin that came out a little while ago. I don't particularly like that one, but there's a better one called Tab by a guy called Avi Schiffman. You know it. He's brilliant. I told you already, I'm a big fan of your CEO. I follow Aaron Levy on Twitter. I got notifications on because he's so quick, he's so witty, and his AI stuff is brilliant. This
Yeah,
Avi guy's like 22. He's a Harvard dropout, and he is going to make what I think is going to be a completely transformational piece of technology because he's not designing it as a online 24/7 meeting note taker. If you look at what he's done, this thing will listen to you all day long and pop up random suggestions of what
hmm
it thinks you should be doing. And that is, to me, where I think it's going. And I think that, it's going to take a while, but this is the way, AI can ideate everything you could possibly think of, and then it can, do 1,000 of these things and whiz around. So I suppose from the Box point of view, you guys are extremely well positioned because, well, data is the fuel of AI. You have
absolutely.
all of it. You enable a company to suddenly get orders of magnitude more value from the data that they already have. So tell us a
Absolutely.
little bit, because I've seen a little bit, but tell us a bit about Box AI.
It is exactly what you just mentioned, right? Is getting the value and amplifying the value of your content and your unstructured data, right? That's what Box AI is going to do. Whether, as I mentioned earlier, generating new marketing copy, summarizing strategies, stitching together disparate ideas, or interpreting, hey, you've got different groups working on things that are similar. Maybe you should come together, right? That is obviously the potential of it. And Box AI is exciting in a way that obviously is difficult for me to fully articulate because the potential
Yeah,
is so great,
yeah.
right? I mean, we've been in beta, we've been using it internally. We have customers that have been betaing it that are, and the feedback has been tremendous, right? In terms of the what I call the joyless work, right? That it
Yes.
removes, or in many cases accelerates. I think it's important, Colin, though, to note the human impact, right? The human dynamic that is still necessary with AI,
Absolutely.
right? Like, we've seen examples of AI gone wrong, right? And you hear about the
Mhm.
hallucinations. And so I sort of agree with you that, I don't know, I don't think there's not going to be any programmers, in the next 5 years, right? Because that human dynamic is
Yeah,
necessary to keep things in check, to keep things in check. But that said, it makes a great programmer amazing, right? It makes a
exactly.
good developer great. It's not going to make a bad developer good. I mean, let's be honest. If
That's
you write
true. But
bad
it,
code,
it, it
right,
it
you're
brings
you're
them
not
up the
going to be.
value chain.
Yeah.
You
It
know,
as I said, like it amplifies
yeah.
people that are skilled, right? And people
Mhm.
who know how to use it and leverage it are going to be that much better.
I think, look, I've always said this. I believe that AI will take away the drudgery and the boring and the repetitive tasks that we hate doing and bring us back to exactly as you said, the human aspect. There's a friend of mine, Todd Mitchum. He's like a foremost authority on the humanism behind AI because that is what it's going to bring us back to. This, you and me talking face to
Yes.
face, figuring things out,
Yes.
and then when we need work to be done, a lot of that will be able to be handed off to the AI or to someone who will do it 100 times faster using AI. That is basically the way I was going to say it. What other kind of exciting things in general in the market are you looking forward to over the next couple of years?
Well, it's really hard to look at anything beyond AI. But, I mean,
Mm.
on that topic, what I'm looking forward to is, the continued advancement and maturity of applying it to enterprise problems, right?
Yes.
And being able to do it in a way that, is cost effective, and where value is realized in a very short time frame, right? So, I mean, I think there are all kinds of opportunities out there, and you're starting to see this in the security space, in compliance, in particular, right? Things that take a lot of energy for companies to do, whether it's SOX, whether it's assessing cybersecurity risk, right? And being able to do that much, much faster, right? At a massively accelerated rate to get back to the, okay, now I'm doing the analysis, right? I've done the assessment, now I'm doing the analysis and figuring out what I need to do. I think the next step may also, and we're already seeing this, is it's doing the analysis and it's coming up with the recommendations. Hey, here are 8 things we think you should do based on what this current state is. Those are the things that, particularly in IT organizations, take a lot of energy to go do, right? If you think about one example I love is if you're a public company in a highly regulated space, right? The effort and the work to maintain compliance, whether if you're in financial services or healthcare or the energy business, right? There are a lot of regulatory bodies. There's constant updating, right? You have to keep up with changes, right? And from a documentation perspective, from a process perspective, being able to apply AI at scale, right? There's a new regulation that has come out. Okay, you have to update all of your policies and your documentation. The effort to do that kind of thing in the past, I mean, that could take months. Now you're maybe talking hours, right? Hours to go
Incredible.
do that. Here are all the changes, review the changes. Yes, they look good. Okay, done, right? Now you're moving on to the next thing. Those are the kinds of problems, right? Definitive problems that I think we need to make sure, and I'm certainly focusing on that. Those are the things that I need to solve, right? As a CIO, I've got things that are necessary to run as a public company, necessary to run as a global company, but they're not high value. They're not driving growth.
Yes.
And so if I can get
Not
those
revenue
things,
generating.
if I can minimize that work, right, and get it out of the hands of people and get people focused on the things that are going to grow the company, and that are going to be meaningful, that's incredibly powerful, right? That's what I'm looking for. Those are the solutions that I think are just gonna take off and accelerate.
Perfectly said. So on the other side, what about some of the fears? I mean, is AI going to take my job? Is one of the key questions I always, always, always have to deal with. I kind of give them the answer. From your very, very deep experience in the enterprise, how do you see this playing out?
Great question, right? It's a question that comes up all the time. Personally, so my opinion, I think there will be some job displacement. And I don't think it's necessarily you're going to see massive reductions across the board as a result of AI. I think what you're going to see are flat hiring plans, right? Or
Yes.
incrementally slower hiring plans because AI is amplifying and maximizing the existing workforce, right? We already see this. I see this in my organization, right? And that we look at roles that we might have needed, on a developer standpoint and realize, well, no, we can actually leverage Copilot or something like that to do that work. So I don't think, and I could be wrong, maybe 50 years from now, right? They'll be like, oh, he was totally wrong. Wholesale displacement and reduction of jobs, I don't think it is going to occur. Like automation of jobs, really has occurred, and a lot of displacement has already occurred as a result of technology. Is there a little bit more? Maybe. The hard thing about AI is really effectively stitching it together to where you can have true end-to-end automation. I think that it'll be interesting to see how that plays out because that is still difficult, right? Even without AI, that kind of automation where you say, look, I don't need 100 people anymore. That's hard and that takes time. It's not something that typically happens overnight. So I think we'll continue to see. I definitely, I do believe that in certain areas, hiring will slow. And so, you'll see not a reduction in headcount, but a flattening of headcount.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you. We're pretty much out of time, Ravi. So I just want to say a very big thank you. It's been a really interesting conversation. Hopefully I'll have you back at some stage. Everyone should go and follow Ravi on LinkedIn and on Twitter, and definitely keep very close attention at what Box is doing, because I'm super excited about where it's going to go.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Colin. It's been a fantastic discussion, and look forward to another one in the future.
That's awesome. Thanks, Ravi. Take care.